Hello and welcome back to What's Millie Making, where I'm Millie, and this is a space where I talk about the past, present, and future of my making. Today's video is my late summer making plans. I feel a little bit sad to say that it is late summer because it makes it feel like summer is over. But honestly, I'm making these plans for the next 2 months because technically summer is not over until the spring equinox, which is the end of September. And just to make things easier, I'm counting the whole month of September as summer. And you might have noticed this is a making plans video, not purely a knitting plans video, but I do have a lot of knitting things to talk about. So I will be splitting this into 3 chapters. So it's going to be a knitting chapter, and a crochet chapter, and then a sewing chapter. And honestly, this summer I have been knitting a little bit less because I don't love summer knits, which I will get into more in the knitting section. And more of my making time has been dedicated to sewing, which I am learning to love, learning to get better at. I just feel like summer is honestly the perfect time for sewing because it's the things that I sew that are wearable. Summer sewn pieces just get a lot more wear for me versus knit summer pieces. That's not all I'll say about that. That's all I'll say about that right now. And for each of these projects, I am hoping to use something I have in my stash, be it yarn or fabric. Some of the plans are more concrete, and then some of them are kind of just ideas or categories. For the knitting plans, I do have specific patterns, and a number of them I have cast on. And then the crochet and sewing plans are a little bit more up in the air, but I do have sources of inspiration for all of those. I also think in a previous, like either my spring making plans video or my Make 9, something like that, I feel like somebody commented saying that it's okay that you don't make all these things. Like, this doesn't have to be a list that you follow to the T, but rather it's a curation of things that you are interested in, and whatever you make in the upcoming season can be pulled from this list. And I really like that way of thinking because I am not able to create realistic making plans. I am just interested in too many things, and not to say that I'm so fickle that something I'm interested in this week, I will have zero interest in next week, but maybe I will be even more interested in something else. So when I make these plans, maybe plans is not the right word. This is a buffet of suggestions for myself of various things I want to make. This is enough, I think, dilly-dallying. Let's just get into things. So first up, let's talk knitting. I feel like 2025 for me has definitely been the year of the cardigans. I just love cardigans. I currently have 3 cardigan projects on the needles. I just love cardigans. I think they're so versatile, they're so wearable, and I just don't have as many of them in my knit wardrobe because knitting in the round versus knitting flat. Knitting in the round like always wins for me. That said, like I said, they're so wearable, and there's just so many like good outfit ideas with cardigans that you can see on Instagram, on Pinterest, on TikTok, whatever. They look good with the wide leg pants. They look good with skirts. They look good over dresses. They look good over t-shirts. They look good buttoned up. They look good half buttoned up. They look good completely open. I just love all the cardigans, and I'm still very much in my crew neck cardigan phase. I think I've knit only one v-neck cardigan, and I don't really wear it. And even like the ready-to-wear cardigans that I have, I think I wore actually that's a lie. I did wear my v-neck ones a lot, but just in like over the past year, I haven't really been interested in v-neck cardigans. It's all about the crew neck cardigans for me, and my summer plans very much reflect that. So like I said, I have 3 cardigans on the needles, but 2 of them are basically done, so I'm not going to be counting them in this video. If you want to hear me talk more about this project, you can watch my previous knitting podcast. I have one all black cardigan and one brown and blue striped cardigan, and both of them I'm working on the button band. So they're basically finished objects. I'm not going to be talking about them as planned. But I do have a 3rd cardigan that I also talk about in that podcast, but it's still very much a whip because I've basically just finished the yoke and I'm knitting on the body. This is a self-drafted cardigan. It has a modified drop shoulder set in sleeve, and it's in this Gepard Garn Woolia in the, I want to say it's blood orange is the name of the colorway. It's like a very bright, honestly, it reads more as like a tomatoey red to me than a blood orange. What do you think? Anywho, I've been obsessed with this colorway, and I'm knitting a crew neck cardigan with it. So for this cardigan, I think I want to try a little something different with the sleeves because I have seen 2 bright red cardigans with this like bishop style sleeve lately, and they're both just like living in my mind. So since I already have a red cardigan on the needles, it kind of felt like fate when I saw these two other cardigans, and I was really obsessed with them. So first is this Simone Rocha cardigan, and as you can see, it has like that. The bishop sleeve in this one is not as exaggerated, but it's definitely there. And then there's this other cardigan from, I think it's a New Zealand brand called Ruby. And this cardigan does have some texture on it. Mine is just plain stockinette, but it's more so the silhouette of this cardigan that really inspires me. I really, really love that bishop sleeve, and I'm thinking of adding some long ribbing to this cardigan. And because I am making this up as I go, that will be an experiment because I've knit, I think, like bishop sleeves once or twice before. We'll see, because I'm also doing this. Actually, I realize this is making things a little complicated for me because I'm doing a modified set and sleeve. I will be working short rows, and I'll have to see how that works with a bishop sleeve because I do want like an extra bit of volume around the shoulder. We'll see. But that's just like the idea. Even if it's not a full-on bishop sleeve, I can still make the sleeve wide until I taper down to the ribbing. So that is knitting plan number 1. Knitting plan number 2. I can't even remember knitting plan number 2. Gotta check my note. Number 2 is another cardigan. This cardigan is a test knit for Meepy the Label. This is a cardigan that has cables and lace. It's so pretty. It has that like pointelle lace design. I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but I feel like that motif has been really popular this year, and I've been seeing it more in like ready to wear pieces and in like already knit fabric that you can buy. So I love that this pattern has it in a way that you can knit it yourself. And of course the cabled sleeves on it, stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. And I think this is another design that will look really cute all buttoned up or opened. And in terms of what yarn I want to use for this, I'm a little bit stuck because I do have quite a few options in my stash. I made like a TikTok about it. So let's see, I have some pink Pure Gint. Unsure if I will be able to reach the 19 stitch gauge with cables with that yarn. I have this green yarn, also from Santa's Garn. It's Double Sunday held with tin silk mohair. I'm leaning towards that one, but I also had plans to knit another cable sweater with that one, so that one's iffy. Noro Silk Garden Solo. This is one of my favorite yarns of all time. I just don't know if it'll be too busy for this pattern because I have seen some cable sweaters knit with this pattern, but it's usually something that has a larger cable motif. Whereas this one does have the lace and then the cables on the sleeve. I just don't know if the yarn will be too busy for this pattern. And then lastly, I have this Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino I bought at the start of the year. Initially, this was the yarn I was going to use for this project because I thought I had the perfect amount. A lot of times when I'm picking a yarn and pattern from stash, I try to see that I have around the same amount of yardage, which like duh sounds obvious, but I don't like having a lot of yardage left over. Like I just feel like I'm stuck with all these extra balls of yarn. So I'll even sometimes pick patterns where I maybe have too little yardage because usually like designers will work in extra yardage into their estimates, and also I'm short, so I tend to knit sleeves and bodies a little bit shorter than like what most patterns are graded to. So I initially thought I had just the right amount for my size in this pattern, but I think I'll have like 300 or 400 yards left if I use this Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. So that's the only reason why I'm kind of iffy about it, because otherwise I think this would be a really great pattern and yarn. So then I was looking through my stash, like mentally, like I didn't actually physically look because I didn't feel like digging out this yarn. And it's almost the time to start knitting with unspun yarn again. I don't knit with unspun yarn in the summer because my hands just get like really clammy and it tends to then pull the unspun yarn apart. Plus I always knit unspun yarn with mohair, and like mohair and unspun yarns, two fibers that I absolutely love in the winter, I absolutely loathe working with in the summer. So that was the only reason that didn't come to the forefront of my mind. However, depending on when I cast this on, if it's like slightly cooler or if I sit in front of the fan when I'm knitting on this, maybe the Nutiden and mohair combo will work, because I have this one color of Nutiden that's just been sitting in stash for like 2 or 3 years. I haven't bought Nutiden actually in quite a while because I just have so much of it in stash. So yeah, it is probably 2 or 3 years old. It's like this murky, swampy color, which sounds so unappetizing, but I think it's a stunning color. It's like a mix of like browns and greens, and I have 2 different sweater quantities of knitting for olive mohair in my stash, so that could work with it. I have dusty artichoke, which is like that classic light green color, right? And if I held it with this Neutrogena, it would lean it more into the green category. Then I also have this like medium-ish brown knitting for olive mohair colorway that I don't remember the colorway off the top of my head, but it'll be probably on the screen. And if I held that with a Neutrogena, it would lean it more in a neutral direction. But either way, I think it would create a really interesting fabric because I feel like all Neutrogenas have some sort of marl to them, but this one is like not specifically, this one is like extra marled, and I really, really like the color. Actually, maybe I will look up, if I can find my email receipt, maybe I can look up the color on Ravelry to see how it looks knit up, because I don't think I've even knit a proper swatch with this. I've maybe swatched with it like in color work, but I don't know if I would knit like a stockinette section in this color, what it would look like. So those are the 2 cardigans. These are both definite plans because one is already cast on and the second is a test knit. Then I have 2 summer tops on my making plans. So personally, I'm not the biggest fan of summer knits for a variety of reasons. Number one, I don't enjoy knitting with plant fibers as much. I will say I did cast on one of these summer knits, and it is definitely easier for me to work with plant fibers now versus it was 2 years ago, aka the last time I worked on summer knits, because back then I was a purely English knitter and my gauge was definitely tighter. And now because I knit continental in the round, my gauge is a lot looser and I don't find myself getting like that hand fatigue when knitting with plant fibers because my gauge is a lot looser. Because if you've never knit with plant fibers before, they don't have the same elasticity as wool, so that's why a lot of people, I think, don't enjoy knitting with them as much. That said, even though I don't get the hand fatigue, I still don't like it as much. So both of these summer like knit projects, I will be using yarns from stash. Actually, that's everything in this video. Basically, specifically with summer yarns, I have not purchased summer yarns, I think, in 2 or 3 years. So the yarn was either A, old yarn in stash, or B, I did win some yarn in this year's New Jersey Wool Walk, and that's the yarn in these plans. I got so sidetracked. Oh yeah, one of the reasons I don't like summer knitting is I don't like the yarns. Number 2 is I just don't find they fit me as well, because I feel like with sweaters, I want a lot of, I'm fine with a decent amount of positive ease, but for summer knits in general, I feel like I want them to be a little bit more fitted depending on the design, because I think I wear a lot of like wider bottoms in the summertime, and I like the tiny top, big bottom combination, and just getting the right fit with the knit fabric is a little bit more difficult, especially because I'm not knitting like a fingering weight all ribbed top. I've tried that in the past and I gave up after a few inches. So I know those types of pieces are very, very wearable, but I just don't enjoy making them, and I'm not gonna force myself to make them. And I also just don't have any like fingering weight cotton yarn in stash, and I don't want to buy any fingering weight cotton yarn until I use up all my other summer yarns. That was a pretty big prelude into my like proper summer knits that I plan on making. So the first summer knit that I am making, I've already cast this on, is the Soul Top by Rose Knitwear. I have been admiring this top, I think, since it came out. I really, really like the way that the straps are knit on this pattern. Like, it looks really substantial. And even though it is a tank top, I think there's still enough coverage that I can comfortably wear a bra with it. Bonus, I didn't have to pay for this pattern because it's in the Rose Knitwear book, which my local library has. So I just checked out the book and I cast it on from there. I have run into a few roadblocks with this pattern. Number one, I found that the sizing in the schematic is a little bit different than the sizing that I got from doing the math, because obviously you have a gauge, you have a stitch count for the body, and you can do some maths to figure out what circumference that's giving you. And I found out it was about like an inch off of what the schematics say. Also, there's no recommended ease in this pattern. So it does have something like, there's like a size chart at the end of the book, and it says what size, like let's say size 4 is meant for this bust circumference to this bust circumference, but it doesn't say like if you're towards the end, maybe it doesn't say like, oh, 5 to 10 centimeters ease or like 15 to 25 centimeters ease. And I just feel like I've had that same problem with previous summer knits when I didn't have enough information with the schematics and sizing, and I just ended up with a piece that was too big on me. And I was wary of facing the same thing with this tank top because I did initially cast on with the larger size. Then I went down one size and then I ended up going down 2 sizes because I have not the biggest difference, but there's a difference between my bust circumference, my full bust circumference, and my waist circumference. And if I was just picking a size based off my full bust circumference, that's why I was realizing the tank top was so much wider around my waist. And I just didn't think I would like the look of it because on the model, the sample, this tank top is pretty fitted, and I was afraid if I was to knit it, it would be like fitted around my bust and then it would just kind of flare out at my waist because I would have a lot of positive ease, and that's not the look I was going for. So I ended up going down several sizes and I cast that on, and there's like maybe an inch of ease around my waist, and the plan is to knit up till I'm like underneath my bust, and then I will work some increases along the sides to increase until I get a stitch count that will give me 0 ease around the bust. Again, I have no idea if 0 ease is recommended because there's no recommendation in this pattern, which I wish there was, but I think this should solve my problems because I was then looking at other summer tops on Ravelry that did include schematics and did include the amount of ease, and I generally like the way that 0 ease looks. I'm okay with it being like negative ease of 1 inch or positive ease of 1 inch, but I want it to be generally pretty close fitting. And then the yarn that I'm using for this project is one that I won during the New Jersey Wool Walk. It is Broco Vera, and it's an 80% cotton, 20% viscose from aloe vera blend. This has a chain-up construction. There's absolutely no stretch in this yarn. Like if I tried to pull it, basically like I was saying, there's no stretch in this construction. If you've ever worked with a chainette wool yarn, you'll know it has like a decent amount of stretch to it, but sadly this one does not. That said, because I've been knitting continental, it's been pretty easy on my hands, and I do also really like this colorway. Oh, another reason I don't necessarily love knits is because I feel like cotton yarn just stretches out so easily and it turns kind of shapeless. We'll see if the viscose in this yarn helps because I don't think I've ever knit with a cotton viscose blend before. So maybe the viscose will help it to maintain its shape and not turn into a shapeless lump. All those sizing issues aside, if I'm able to get this fit right for me, I think I will knit a scrappy version with some sock yarn or wool yarn scraps because I really like these scrappy versions of this that I've seen on Ravelry. Then lastly, I also have 8 balls of Sandusgarn Line that I bought at the Wool Walk on sale a few years ago, maybe like 2 Wool Walks ago, and this is another yarn that I bought at Knit Tapestry. They just have some of the best sales. If you live in New Jersey, they have sales like a few times a year. The Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino I was talking about for the test knit, I also got during one of their sales. I was like their winter sale, and their sales are always 40% off. So if you live in New Jersey, that's my tip to you. I got this Sandusgarn Line for 40% off a few years ago. It's in a really pretty light blue colorway, but again, I'm just not the biggest summer knitter. It's just been sitting in my stash, and I have a decent amount of yardage of it. And I've been thinking of knitting the cloud top. It's the sleeveless version, not the one with the sleeves. I think the sleeves one has a finer gauge. I really like the look of this top from Petite Knit. I like the cloud sweater, so naturally I like the cloud top as well. It has like that classic muscle tee look, and I've sewn a white skirt. I have like white wide leg pants, and I feel like this light blue will just look really cute and beachy with like a white maxi skirt, white wide leg pants, white shorts. Yeah, I really like the cloud top. Initially, I had been looking at the Ivy top, which is the sleeveless top that Petite Knit released this year. However, I'm a little bit unsure about the neckline on that. I feel like it has like a possible funnel neck situation. I don't like the space on the sides of the neck. It looks like a little bit stretched out. So initially I did really like it, but then I was like looking at it again, I was like, I don't really know if this neckline is for me. Another top I have been contemplating is the Winnie top by Lily Kate France. However, I think this top looks best in a wool yarn. The sample is knit with the Cardiff Cashmere, which I will not be purchasing because it requires 8 balls of yarn and it's $25 per ball. I'm not ready to make a $200 cashmere t-shirt. Said I do have a lot of fingering weight yarn in my stash, so maybe that can be like a fall or winter plan. That t-shirt is just so pretty. However, I don't know how the lace design would look in the line, because the line is like pretty loosely plied and it's kind of stringy. So those are my summer knitting plans. There's only 4. Oh no, wait, I have a 5th one, my Rhinebeck sweater. I was gonna say, oh my god, I only have 4 and 2 of them are already cast on. That's so reasonable. No, I have a 5th one and it is my Rhinebeck sweater. So I haven't decided exactly what I want my Rhinebeck sweater to be this year, even though time is ticking away. I do have like a general aesthetic or vibe that I'm going for this year. And I would love to knit another vintage pattern, and something that I've really been into are vintage intarsia designs where you just have a solid background and then there's like large motifs spread throughout the sweater. A designer that I've really been loving this year is Susan Duckworth. I bought a few of her pattern books earlier this year and I would love to knit one of her designs. Another one is the Seatons. I have been admiring their designs for I think like two years at this point. I have purchased 1 or 2 of their books. I don't know. They are the famous designer of my ultimate dream knit, the Henri in Pennsylvania sweater, which I still have no concrete plans of making. I have a concrete plan of making it in my lifetime. I just don't know when that will be. Their intarsia designs are really cool too. And I feel like I'm kind of onto something with this like intarsia thing, because I was looking at Net-a-Porter while writing up my notes for this video to look at like what knitwear they have, and I saw this gray cardigan that has flowers all over it, and it's definitely like the vibe that I'm going for, except I want my version to be a little bit more colorful and the motifs will probably be larger. But I feel like I'm onto something. I have also been thinking of making my Rhinebeck sweater gray. If I do not do a vintage sweater, I have really been enjoying self-drafting things, and I have like a notebook where I just like sketch out different ideas, and I have so many different like sweater ideas I just like love to design for myself, and one of them is kind of like under this vibe. I won't go too much into it because maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't. But I have like an idea of a gray sweater with like all different colors of stars across it. And I haven't decided if I want it to be if I want my Rhinebeck sweater to be a pullover or a cardigan. I feel like cardigan is probably the safest option, so you never really know what the weather is going to be like, and a cardigan I can at least wear like unbuttoned. All I know is I want to use intarsia to create some sort of large motifs, and I want it to be gray. There's actually this one very specific outfit that Laufey, I've never said her name out loud, so I don't know if I'm saying it right. Laufey, the singer. She wore this one, what's that brand? Rowing Blazers sweater that has like snails on it, and she wore it with a black mini skirt. And then again, the Susan Duckworth books that I bought, there's this one outfit where she's wearing like an intarsia sweater with a pleated mini skirt, and I want that to be my Rhinebeck outfit. Like as soon as I saw that outfit in the Susan Duckworth book, I'm like, I need that. This is me, this is my aesthetic, this is my vibe, and I want to make it happen. So Rhinebeck outfit is already like in my head. I just don't know all the specifics about it. And I probably will make a video talking about different vintage sweater options like I did last year. Last year was a little bit different because I had never made any sort of sweater like this before. So I had a lot of different options, and I talk about like the different inspirations for each of those patterns. A lot of them like came from different pieces of art and stuff. I think this year's video will be a little bit different because I have a narrower focus. So we'll see. If you want to watch that video, I will link it in the description box below. So that is the end of my knitting plans. I don't know how or if I will get into those things. Out of the 5 things, 4 of them are kind of already happening, because I'm definitely making a Rhinebeck sweater. The red the red cardigan is already on the needles. Definitely need to make the test knit, and the sole top is already on the needles. So it's really only that 5th one. Can I finish 5 sweaters in 2 months? That seems kind of unrealistic. I mean, I guess the Rhinebeck sweater I have like half of October as well. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that's the end of the knitting section. Now let's talk crochet. I'm very much a beginner crocheter, but I'm so excited to finally be able to crochet because I love the look of crocheted summer garments. At the beginning of the summer, when I first learned how to crochet, I made this like little mood board of all the cool crochet pieces I've been seeing from ready-to-wear brands. Obviously, my skill level is nowhere near the ability to recreate these pieces, but it's just helped me narrow down on what I liked, and I can maybe create like one piece inspired by these. And specifically, filet crochet, I love it. As soon as I see something filet crocheted, I'm like, save it, like it, pin it. I want it in my memory bank. And specifically, Loeffler Randall has this one filet crochet dress with like a rose on it. And in the beginning of the summer, I was really convinced that I could remake this dress. Maybe I will next summer if I'm still interested in it. Oh, the Loeffler Randall dress. I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. I honestly think it could even be converted into like a winter dress, because obviously I would be wearing it, something underneath it, and then maybe you could wear like a chunky cardigan over it or a long coat. Maybe at some point in the winter, I would like to try making something like this dress. But I have zero experience with filet crochet. So obviously my first project is not going to be a huge dress. I would really love to make a filet crochet yoke. I've seen a lot of these like yoke type dress from ready-to-wear brands. I think Joanne and Christy Dawn have 2 of the best examples. They're just so pretty and delicate. And there's this one website that's like, it's like some antique library, and they have scans of all different like antique patterns, not just crochet, but like other crafts as well. I don't know, needlepoint, what's that? Tattle lace making. I don't know the other crafts names, but they just have like a huge library. And I think I saw like one project on Ravelry. It's under my Ravelry favorite. So I'll like insert a picture with like the name of the creator who made it. And hers just looks so cute. I haven't decided like what specific pattern I would like to make because some of them look more complex than others. And I think whatever pattern I decide, I just want it to be like very, very simple, just like a simple square shape. I don't need any like, some of them have like rounded curves or like diamonds and all this other stuff. I want to keep things simple for my first filet crochet project. Hopefully that is within my skill set. I've watched a few YouTube videos on filet crochet, and people say it is pretty easy to do once you get the hang of it. Like, I don't think there's any complicated stitches involved. Actually, that's a lie. In basic filet crochet, I don't think there's any complicated stitches involved, but in some of these vintage patterns, they use like complex stitch patterns that I don't know if I would be able to do. I don't know if I would be able to interpret the pattern. So that's why this project is like just kind of in the air, but I am determined to make something with filet crochet. And if I can't do the filet crochet yoke, my secondary project, my backup project would be to filet crochet a little panel, because there's this one clothing brand from Mexico City. I can't remember the name, but I will again insert a picture and the name of the brand on the screen. And they created this skirt. It's just like a very basic white skirt, but then there's some cutouts where they have inlaid filet crochet. And I've also seen this other brand, like a few other brands. I think the one off the top of my head I know is Ace and Jig. They've created dresses and then they just have cutouts where they're inserted crochet lace. And I think that's such a cool idea as well. Just making like a plain white skirt or plain pair of white wide-legged pants and then cutting in a section to inlay the filet crochet. So those are my filet crochet ideas. And again, I don't have like specific patterns for these. I think I just want to, apologies if you can hear the blender in the background. I don't have specific patterns in mind, but I really, really love to recreate some of these like vintage crochet designs. That's everything on the crocheting front. Lastly, we have the sewing. And sewing is the one that's the most up in the air. On one hand, sewing projects take significantly less time than crochet and knitting projects, so that's great. But on the other hand, I feel like they require a greater level of commitment, because if I cast on a crochet or knit project and I change my mind, I can just frog the yarn and reuse it for a project. But with sewing, once you cut the fabric, you're kind of committed to that project. And even if the project doesn't turn out how you want it to be, you just have this like cut up fabric that sure I could repurpose like into some sort of like patchwork project in the future, but most of the time at this point in like my sewing journey, I just want to sew something plain. So I don't have to think about like how the patchworking and stuff will work. So that's why when it comes to sewing, my plans are a little bit more nebulous. Like I have to think about it for quite a while. And a lot of times I like switch back and forth. Do I want to use this pattern? Do I want to use that fabric? And it's like up until the last moment when I actually like print out or purchase and print out the pattern where the decisions are finally made. Also, another thing is sewing patterns tend to be a lot more expensive than knitting and crochet patterns. I feel like most knit and crochet patterns are under $10, whereas most sewing patterns are closer to like the $20 to $30 mark. So it is also something I have to like think a lot more about if I want to purchase them. That said, I created like a little mood board for my late summer sewing, and I have all these like different pieces from ready to wear brands that I really, really like. I'm not necessarily looking to recreate them exactly, but they gave me an idea for like different categories of projects that I would like. So I'll go over the categories and then I'll share some patterns that I'm thinking about, as well as possibly what fabrics from my stash I would like to make them in. So pattern category number 1 are drop waist skirts. I've already created the La Ciotat pattern and the Henrietta skirt by Spaghetti Western Sewing, and I really enjoyed both projects, and I would love to make these patterns again and kind of use what I've already learned to make like further additions and further changes. For instance, for the La Ciotat skirt, I think I would like to add some interfacing to the hip and waist panels, because when I'm sitting down in the skirt for extended periods of times, when I get up, there's like pretty obvious creasing. And then for the Spaghetti Western Sewing Henrietta skirt, I would like to sew it with the center panel intact. The way that I made my last version, I did like 4 side panels instead, and I decided that I actually do really like the classic shape of the original design, and I like to make a version like that. I've also seen people make versions where it's the waist is only elasticated in the back, and then in the front you have a flat waistline. I don't know if that's correct terminology, but it's basically the front waistline doesn't have any elastic in, and I really like the look of that, and I like to try giving that technique a try. As far as what fabrics I want to make these skirts in, I'm a little bit unsure. Maybe thrifted bed sheets. That's kind of been like my go-to, because I'm scared of committing to cutting fabric, because I feel like I'm just like wasting it if I'm not 100% certain on it. That said, I do have some pink like cotton silk that I bought earlier this summer, and if I make like more versions of the skirt and I'm 100% dead set, I'm happy with the fit, I'm happy with any modifications, maybe then I will cut into this cotton silk fabric to make a pink version of the skirt. The next category of patterns I would like to make are another pair of wide leg pants, and I'd also like to make some shorts with the same pattern. So in my last knitting podcast, I talk about these purple like cotton poplin pants I made with the ruffle brunch set by Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. I was a little bit unsure about them when I finished the project, because like, oh, the leg is so wide and it has a really, really high rise. And definitely for my next version, I will look up a YouTube tutorial on how to shorten the rise on pants. And I maybe also might try making them slightly narrower just so they don't eat up as much fabric. And sometimes when I'm walking, I feel like they make too much noise because they're just that wide. But all that said, they're so comfortable, and I've gotten so much more wear than I was expecting, especially like when it gets like a little bit chillier at night. I find myself reaching for those pants if I'm just like going out to run errands or pick up dinner or whatever. And I can see myself getting more wear out of them into the fall, especially if I make a pair where like the rise on them isn't so high. That's the only thing that makes them a little bit awkward, like where they sit on my waist, because the rise is so high. And I didn't think the purple color would be so wearable, but honestly, I've been getting a ton of wear out of it. It's like very easy to wear with just like t-shirts. It's a very comfortable outfit. Unsure if I would also do the pin tucks on the bottom of the pants again. I just feel like it's kind of hard for me to iron them down flat. Perhaps I'd also like to make a version with the ruffle on the bottom, but we'll see. The fabric choice for this one is a little bit more tricky because I don't think it would look good in a thrifted bed sheet, but I'm also unsure if I have fabric in my stash that I want to commit to this project. I do have some other cotton poplin in my stash, but I'm unsure if I want to use it for this project or for a dress that I'll talk about in a little bit. I also have another pants pattern in my stash that I like to try, which are the Helios trousers by Indigo Indigo. And this pair of trousers is really cool because it has like different waistlines available, and I think you can make it with pleating or without pleating. There's this one sample they made that has these two bow tie closures, and I love a bow tie closure. I'm a sucker for a bow tie closure, and I totally want to make that version. I also saw somebody on Instagram made that version but made it into shorts, and they looked really cool. I don't really have many, if any, like wearable shorts in my closet. I think they're all just like workout or like pajama type of shorts. I don't have like shorts that I could just wear out on a regular basis, and I think I'd like to sew some because shorts are like one of the things that I find. I just really struggle to find shorts from like ready to wear brands that I like the fit of. They're either too short, too long, and if they fit on my waist, then I feel like they're just too wide everywhere else. So being able to sew my perfect pair of shorts, or not even perfect, sew a nice pair of shorts that I enjoy wearing would be really nice. Oh, I did make the boxers or the bloomers from the picnic set, and I do enjoy the fit of those. However, I don't know how they would work as just like regular shorts. I'm unsure if I would like the inseam length on them if they were not bloomers. And I'd also like to sew up the Lane pants by Sid Graham, and I've seen a lot of people, and I think she even shares a hack on how to turn those into shorts. And the ruffle brunch set pants that I made in the pattern, they tell you how to make shorts. So I have options for short patterns. It's just committing to a fabric. My number one difficulty when it comes to sewing projects. The next category of things I would like to make are, this is like an even vaguer category, and it's maxi dresses to dress up or down. So I have a few dresses from Doen, and actually I have more than a few from Hill House Home. I have a lot of their nap dresses. They're just so comfortable to wear, and they're really easy to dress up or down. I'm not saying I would wear them to like a wedding, but they're easy to wear to like something that I would just like wear something nice to, like out to dinner or out to like a summer party. I've worn them there, but then I also kind of wear them with like with my Birkenstocks and with my sneakers. They're just very versatile dresses that I can wear for a wide variety of events and places to go and whatnot. As far as pattern goes, there's just so many out there. I just haven't decided like what specific style I'm going for. Like I don't think I need to recreate the exact dresses that I have, but something of like that similar vibe. I think some designers that have what I'm looking for are Silver Saga, Mila Oni, Nina Lee. There are some others I found on Threadloop, and I will insert like some pictures on the screen of the patterns, like the vibe of the patterns that I'm interested in, as well as the designer and pattern names. And as far as fabric goes for those, I have two like cuts of cotton poplin fabrics that I got from Joann's. One is a red colorway and one is a green colorway, and I have like 4 or 5 yards of each of these, so definitely enough to make some sort of maxi dress. I just really think I need to make a toile out of a thrifted bedsheet, and then I can make the proper version with the nice fabric. Next category is actually I have 2 more categories, and they're both kind of just as vague because I have more inspiration than I have like concrete plans. So I checked maxi dresses, but I'd also like to make some like floaty mini dresses. And I don't have that many like short sleeved mini dresses in my closet, but the ones that I do have, I wear a ton. So why not sew some more? There's specifically this one like Sandy Liang dress that I saw that is from, is it from their fall collection? I don't remember. It's currently on their site. It has like a yoke that ends above the bust line, and then it just was like a ton of fabric flaring out, and it has these little puff sleeves. There are a lot of people who would say this looks like a cupcake dress and maybe like, oh, only like somebody who's tall and thin could wear that. I'm not falling for that propaganda. I like the way it looks and I think I would have fun wearing this style of dress. And there's actually a pattern that recently came out that is like exactly like this dress. It is the Clementine dress by Ordinary Folk, and one of the testers made a version in red that's so stinking cute and looks exactly like the Sandy Liang. As far as what fabric I would want to use for it, I do have some green gingham fabric. I don't know if I would have enough. Oh, for the skirt portion of the dress, it's not even a skirt if it starts up here, but the voluminous portion of this dress, I think I would want to add a lining to it just to add like the extra volume. Also, the fabric that I have is quite sheer and floaty, and I feel like this pattern or dress might look nicer in a structured fabric, but we'll see what happens with that. Another like mini dress-ish pattern that I like the look of is the Roswin dress by Golden Sky, and there have been a few people that have made, I think, patchwork versions of the dress. The one that I've seen is Mippy the Labels. Her version is so cute, and I think I would love to make a patchwork style mini dress, either this pattern or if I buy that pattern from Ordinary Folk, I'm sure I could also figure out a way to make that patchwork-ish. And then the last category is blouses. I really struggle to find blouses that I like. Like I don't have many blouses in my wardrobe. I mostly just wear dresses in the summer. And then if I'm wearing a skirt, I'll wear it usually with like a tee or tank top, but I would like to add some blouses to my wardrobe. The one blouse that I feel like a lot of designers have been coming out with versions of is like inspired by that Doan blouse that has like a raglan cut yoke and then big puffy sleeves. And there are a lot of designers who have come out with their own versions. However, I found a version from McCall's on the Simplicity website that I think has a very, very similar vibe. Specifically, I really like how the neckline is not adjustable. It has like a very clean finish, I think with like some bias tape. And I prefer that to the look of the adjustable necklines. And I know there are also versions with like ruffles and stuff, but I personally really like just like the plain versions. And you could do it with buttons, you could do it without buttons. I feel like that's a versatile piece. And then that dress that I was talking about from the Ordinary Folk, that dress pattern also comes with a top version. So I can make a top of that. I can make a blouse out of that pattern. Kind of similar to that McCall's pattern I was talking about, there's also this other Simplicity pattern for, I think it's like for nightgowns, and it has a sleeveless option and a sleeved option. Even though it's very, very similar to the McCall's pattern, I feel like it's different enough that I could justify purchasing both of them. And this one also reminds me of some Doan blouses, and also reminds me of, I forget, it's like one of the patterns by, I think like Silver Saga. I don't know, but I like that whole like Doan floaty, loosey-goosey, hippie aesthetic. And I love that I can find an affordable pattern for that. Also, recently, I shared this on my Instagram stories. I listened to a podcast episode from Stuff You Missed in History class. They have a two-part series talking about sewing patterns in the West. So one goes into the history of sewing patterns in general, and then the second episode goes into the history of the big four patterns in the US. And I just found that to be so interesting, and it honestly made me very nostalgic for these big four patterns that I've literally never even sewn from, but I really just enjoyed like learning about their history, and the nostalgia definitely hit me, especially because there's like all these like bankruptcy hearings and stuff happening with the company, and especially after Joann's closing, like the nostalgia was at an all-time high. And I have been looking on like the Simplicity website every week to see like patterns that I'm interested in out of paranoia that they will go out of business. Because they do have like such a great pattern library, and especially like the vintage patterns I think are really interesting to look at. Especially like learning more about the history of the company has made me more interested in their vintage patterns. If you have not listened to that podcast episode, highly suggest giving them a listen. It was really interesting to learn about, and it also made me more interested in learning how to modify sewing patterns. Like I said, sewing patterns are quite pricey, so if I were to buy, let's say like two sewing patterns that are pretty similar and they're each $20, like that's $40 right there. And knowing that the way that sewing patterns first started off of these like basic blocks that tailors would then learn how to modify and to design different like designs has given me the inspiration to learn that on a much more basic level. I don't think I could transform like a raglan into a drop shoulder and a sewing pattern at the place that I'm at. But for instance, like that McCall's blouse that I was talking about with the puff sleeves, like I think I can modify that into being a dress if I wanted to. I could modify the sleeve to be shorter. I could modify it to add a ruffle in. Like those are all modifications that I think I would be able to handle at like my current novice beginner sewing level. And if you have like seen the vibe of my sewing patterns that I talk about in this video and you have recommendations, like please do feel free to share, because I feel like finding new sewing designers and finding new sewing patterns is not as easy as finding knitting patterns, in my opinion. So that is it. That's a wrap on all my late summer making plans. Like I said, there's a lot and I know I'm not going to get to all of it, and I'm completely okay with that. This is just, what did I say in the beginning of the video? Like a buffet of options of things I can make. If you are interested in any of these patterns or ideas and you find yourself wanting to make the same thing, please do share. Maybe it will motivate me to make that thing. And as always, I would love to know what you are working on while watching this video, because I want to be influenced by you, what you are making. Maybe I will want to make the same thing. If you enjoy this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and follow along for the next video. I believe the next video will either be a podcast or it will be talking about the vintage sweater pattern. But that is all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for watching. Happy knitting, happy making, and hope to see you again next time. Bye!